Thank you for coming. Welcome. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama. I think if I'm closer to the, oh, now we have to do a whole light manipulation. So this, you remember everything. And I need to go nearer to the conjuries so that they can be in the picture. Let's do that. Some light. Well, can you turn her light on? Or turn it off? No. We need something on.
Maybe angle it, see on the screen.
Yeah, the one on Raman Mandir looks good. Oh, the one on Rupa Mandir is to glare right on her face. Better. Now there's a light right on her head. How come Raman Mandir is so blurry? What's going on to make her so blurry? When there's more light on, she's still blurry. Wonder if it's just the camera. Yeah, it is. Is there a way to get this more high res? Oh, I see. So there's a strip of light on Rupa Manjari's skirt. Here, you're right. Okay. So, what do I do with this McCaffrey side? Agyanam Timiran. Oh, it started already? Agyanam Timirandasya Jnananjana Salakaya Chaksuranmilitam Yena Tasmai Sri Gurave Namah Gurave Gaurachandraya Radhikaya Tadalai Krishnaya Krishna Bhaktaya Tadavaktaya Namo Namo Yam Pravarjantam Manupetamapeta Krityam Vaipayano Virakataruajuhava Utriti Tanmayataya Taravo Benedu Tam Sarvabhuta Vidayam Munimanatosmi Vadyavina Aparada Akshay Chaptasya Kamadi Tarangamadye Kripamayi Tvam Sharanam Prapadyam Vrinde Namaste Sharanaravinda Tavaivasmi Najivami Tambina Iti Vigyaya Radhe Tam Nayamam Sharanam Tike. First, I offer my unlimited obeisances. Hari Mohini, what are you doing way back there? And Vasanti, can you move over this way so I can see you better? Where am I? Where am I in the obeisances? First, I offer my unlimited obeisances in the dust of the lotus feet. My most worshipful Diksha Gurudev. Nityalila Pravishta Om Vishnu Pad. Astotra Sat Shishimad. Srila Bhakti Vedanta Swami Prabhupada. And the same unlimited obeisances in the dust of the lotus feet of my most worshipful Shiksha Gurudev. Nityalila Pravishta Om Vishnu Pad. Astotra Sat Shishimad. Srila Bhakti Vedanta Narayan Goswami Maharaj. Srila Bhakti again, Bharati Goswami Maharaj. Can you sit over here? Because it's out of my peripheral range. Moreover, okay. Yeah, that's good. Very good. So, in the middle of chapter 5, does anybody know what we're up to?
On
519, okay. So let's make a whirlwind review. For those of us who have been there since the beginning, and those who haven't, those who are new. Srimad Bhagavatam opens up with the questions by the sages, 88,000 sages led by Shonaka Rishi and Naimisharanya, asking various questions about how the world's people, how the soul of the world's people can become happy. By knowing the essence of all scriptures, by knowing about the pastimes of Krishna and his incarnations, and about knowing what to do now that Krishna left for his own abode. So Sutta Goswami began by offering his obeisances to his gurus, his Guru Parampara, the author, the Lord, glorifying their questions and extolling the value of devotional service as the only means to become free from the labyrinth knot of reactionary work and birth and death, and be situated in the highest liberation, which means to realize my own form, the Lord's form, and the relationship in service. Then, because of the questions of the sages to know about the magnificent and magnanimous acts of the Lord's incarnations. That's what chapter 3 is all about. Starting with the Purusha avatars, going into the other 25 or so prominent avatars, including such personalities as Narada Muni, Vamandev, or Nrsingadev, Kalki, and then establishing that Krishna Stu Bhagavan Swayam, all incarnations are portions and plenary portions, and portions of the plenary portions of Krishna, but he's the original source of all. Then where did Arjuna take shelter after he left for his own abode? It takes refuge in Srimad Bhagavatam. And chapter 2 is also a glorification of Srimad Bhagavatam, as that shelter of all auspiciousness. Then in chapter 4, the sages are asking about Vyasadeva, the author. How did he happen to come to write the Srimad Bhagavatam? In chapter 4 talks about Vyasadeva and Badarik Ashram, his abode in the Himalayas, how he went into trance and saw all the anomalies of Kali Yuga, how people's lives will be getting shorter, their morality will be getting less. And so because he was meditating on the world's welfare, what to do for them, he divided the one Veda, which was like a sutra, too tight, too condensed for people in general to understand. He divided the Vedas into 4, distributed the knowledge to his disciples who would have sub-branches and disseminated to their disciples. He wanted something simpler for the people of Kali Yuga, so he manifested the Puranas, 18 for those in the mode of goodness, 18 for those in the mode of passion, 18 for those in the mode of ignorance. That brings us to 36 Puranas, the Upanishads. He manifested the Mahabharata, the essence of which, of course, is the famous Bhagavad Gita spoken by the Lord himself to Arjuna. And then he still wasn't satisfied. He couldn't figure out why he was not satisfied. So thinking and thinking, the right moment came, and Narada, his spiritual master, appeared in his hermitage. He offered him a respectful seat, and then we closed the 4th chapter, and going into the 5th chapter, Narada is saying there are so many reasons why a person is despondent, but your reason is not that you've identified with your body, that you haven't followed all religious vows and you're not full of knowledge. That's not the cause. But the cause is that although you have written so many scriptures, there's no direct glorification of the personality of Godhead, the original personality of Godhead, and his pastimes. And some of your literatures deal with impersonal Brahman, some deal with fruitive activities, or getting heavenly planets and good birth. So you haven't yet made a scripture where the people can get liberated to the highest abode and experience the ultimate happiness. Then he said that those literatures, even if they're full of self-realization, if they're not directly in relation to bhakti, to Krishna, then they're useless. And what to speak of literatures for sense gratification, they're like the pilgrimage for the crows. And the purified persons refuse to go there to mundane literature, including newspapers and news on the internet. It's all the same thing. literature. But on the other hand, that literature which glorifies the name, fame, form, pastimes of the Lord is another creation entirely, like the Srimad Bhagavatam. It creates a revolution in misdirected hearts of the people. So now, so he told Vyasadeva to go into trance, and by doing so, all of the Lord's pastimes, A to Z, will become manifested in his heart. And therefore, just after Narada left, he did go into trance. And then there's that very famous verse. What's the verse, Hari Mohini, about Narada also told him that if anyone is engaged in any occupation, even if it's perfect, he executes it perfectly. It's a materially perfect occupation, and he never falls down from it. His position is still zero, still has to transmigrate. But if one engages in devotional service, having heard the Vedic scriptures, then even if he falls down, there's no loss because he starts again from that point. And one should encourage Vyasadeva to teach the people that one should go after that, only that happiness which cannot be had by traveling all over the universe and going to Brahmaloka, the highest material planet. So we're up to 20, you said? Verse 20, let's start there. So did Vyasadeva, no, Narada is still there actually. Narada is still there instructing. So verse 20, Idam hi visvam bhagavan vetaro chito jagatstan audasambhava tadi swayam veda bhavantapite pradeshamatram tapradashitam. The Supreme Personality of Godhead is himself the cosmos, and still he's aloof from it. Because as Prabhupada said, if God does not have some inconceivable things, then how can he be God? So he is himself the cosmos, and he's aloof from the cosmos. From him only has this cosmic manifestation emanate. In him it rests, and unto him it enters after annihilation. Your good self knows all about this. I have given only a synopsis. Atmanatmanam avidyamo vajrit parashrapamsam atmanakalam ajam prajatam jagata shivayatam mahanubhavam. Your goodness has perfect vision. You yourself can know the Supreme Soul, Personality of Godhead, because you are a plenary portion of the Lord, the incarnation of God yourself. Although you are birthless, you have appeared on this earth for the well-being of all people. Please, therefore, describe the transcendental pastimes of the personality of Godhead more vividly. So it's not that he didn't do anything. It just was touched, but not vivid. Louder.
I believe in Canto 1 and 2.
You're not a plenary portion, I'm sorry. You are a separated, infinitesimal part and parcel. It is him, it's not us.
Oh.
All right, so idam hi pungsas tapasa shutasya va svisya Svistasya Tasya Chaburidatayo Vichito Pa Kavibir Nirupito Yadu Tamashloka Anavananam. Learned circles have positively concluded that the infallible purpose of the advancement of knowledge, namely austerities, study of the Vedas, sacrifice, chanting of hymns, and charity, culminates in the transcendental descriptions of the Lord, who is defined by choice poetry. Everything that anybody does for advancement of knowledge, studying the Vedas, doing austerity, sacrifice, chanting of hymns, it has to culminate in hearing about the pastimes of the Lord. Only so much useless labor. Te maya pekya kila chapale ribake. Oh, did I miss that? Sorry. Aham purati tabave bhavam mune dayastu kasya janaveda varinam nirupito valaka eva yonam sushushane nirvivikshatam. Oh, Muni, now getting into Narada's past life. In my past life, in the last millennium, I was born as the son of a certain maidservant, engaged in the service of the Brahmanas, who were following the principles of Vedanta. When they were living together during the 4 months of the rainy season, I was engaged in their personal service. Maya peka hila chapaler okay dante drita krid danane kunuvatani chakru prapam yadyapito yadashanam shushrushamani opavasini. Although they were impartial by nature, these followers of the Vedanta blessed me with causeless mercy. As far as I was concerned, I was self-controlled and had no attachment to sports, even though that I was a boy. I was about 5. In addition, I was not naughty and I did not speak more than required. Chistalepan anumorito vijay sukrit swamjay tadahastakyo disha evan pravitasya vidushura chetasas tadharma eva chi prajayate. Once only, by their permission, I took the remnants of their food, and by doing so, this is how powerful prasadam is. All my sins were at once eradicated. Thus being engaged, that is the direct prasadam that came from the mouth of the pure Lord. Thus being engaged, I became purified in heart, and at that time the very nature of the transcendentalist became attractive to me. Pranavaham Krishna Kata Pragyatam Anuvinash Manohara Shradayame Nupadam Vishwimbata Priyashrava Travasyangam Obhavachi. O Vyastev, in that association, and by the mercy of these great Vedantists, I could hear them describe the attractive activities of Lord Krishna. And thus, listening attentively, again, that qualification was given at the beginning of the first canto, when the sages of Naimisharanya told Sutta Goswami why they're accepting him as their guru, because he heard attentively from his superiors. Thus, he realized everything he said. Thus, listening attentively, my taste for hearing the personality of Godhead increased step by step. Yasmin tada labdru chair mahamate danayam satsvamayaya. Sorry. Yashvadasyas. Mater mama Yaya Yaya Mametad Sarasat Swamayaya Vashe Mayi Brahmani Kopitam Pare. O great sage, as soon as I got a taste for the personality of Godhead, my attention to hear was unflinching. This is the gradual progression. And as my taste developed, I could realize that it was only in my ignorance that I had accepted gross and subtle coverings. Both the Lord and I am transcendental. Tam sarat prabhu vrishaka vitu hare vishrin vato me samjasholam kirtyamanam munibir bhakti Jastamupaha. Thus, during 2 seasons, the rainy season and autumn, I had the opportunity to hear these great souled sages constantly chant the unadulterated glories of the Lord Hari. As the flow of my devotional service began, the coverings of the modes of passion and ignorance vanished. And that's exactly what we were reading about, remember, the 2nd canto. How passion and ignorance disappear when one is situated on devotional service by engaging in service and remembering the Lord. Sasyaiva me krityasa. Oh, it's a new tune. Sasyaiva me nukrityasya prashrutasya tainasa shradavanasya balasya dantasyani. I was very much attached to those sages. I was gentle in behavior, and all my sins were eradicated in their service. In my heart, I had a strong faith in them. That's the backbone of bhakti, is Guru Nistha. I had subjugated the senses, and I was strictly following them with body and mind. That is the definition of sadhu sangha. That is, sangha means in all ways associating with them by body and mind. The Sanskrit left me. Anyway, that's the meaning. Yeah.
How do you
Because he did a pastime of his expansion. Through his expansion, he did this pastime of having a previous birth in the heavenly planets. And he did some offense, and so he was cursed to become a mundane kirtan leader of material music in the heavenly planets. And then he was surrounded by a bunch of girls. It's in one of the cantos. We can actually bring that tomorrow and discuss that. And then again, he was cursed because Brahma or Prajapati, one of his superiors came in and he was ignoring them because he was busy singing with the girls. And so he was cursed to become the son of a maidservant. And when he was the son of a maidservant, he met the sages and then again became perfect. But he was always perfect. This is just happening with his expansion. He performed this human pastime for elevated. Gyanam guyatam, gyanam guyatam, yatat shakshad toditam, anvasocha anvavochan ganishyanta paya. Know that part of the Sanskrit for this definition of real sangha is one of the words is anugamanam. which means following in all ways by body and mind, everything. As they were leaving, those Bhakti Vedantas, who were very kind to poor-hearted souls, instructed me in that most confidential subject which was instructed by the Lord himself. So I'm going to read a little bit in the purport about Bhakti Vedanta. A pure Vedantist, or a Bhakti Vedanta, instructs followers exactly according to the instructions of the Lord himself. (31) Yenaivaham bhagavato vasudevasya vedasa mayanubhavam vidam yena vishtanti tadpadam. By that confidential knowledge, I could understand clearly the influence of the energy of Lord Sri Krishna, the creator, maintainer, and annihilator of everything. By knowing that, one can return to him and personally meet him. Etad samyuchitam brahman tagvacharya yushtisam yad isvare bhagavati karma brahmavacham. O Brahmana Vyaste, it is decided by the learned that the best remedial measure for removing all troubles and miseries is to dedicate one's activities to the service of the Supreme Lord Shri Krishna. So again and again, in different ways, the same statement has been made. It's definitely decided. All the learned scholars have decided by their realization, if you want to get rid of troubles and miseries, then dedicate your activities to the Supreme Lord. The only way, no other way, no other way. Amayo yascha bhutanam jayate sutta eva yamayam dravyam na. Oh, good soul. This is very interesting. Oh, good soul. Does not a thing applied therapeutically cure a disease which was caused by that very same thing? I repeat. Does not a thing applied therapeutically cure a disease which is caused by that very same thing? Let's say, for example, you have diarrhea that came from too much milk. So that same milk applied therapeutically as yogurt will cure that. Could be. So similarly, a so-called material thing is at once turned into spiritual force by the will of the Lord. The necessary condition for such a change is to employ so-called matter in the service of the Lord, the service of spirit, and it becomes like spiritual. This is the way to treat our material disease and elevate ourselves in the spiritual plane. There's no misery, no lamentation, no fear. So the analogy of the milk is analogous to taking anything material, engaging in the service of the Lord, and that thing becomes a cause for our freedom from misery. Although material things, when it was used for sense gratification, was the cause of our miseries. And then there's a Vedic mantra, everything is Brahman. So the impersonalists, they just do all kinds of nonsense and say, well, it's all God. But this becomes a reality when we use matter and spirit, then everything becomes spirit. It's all coming from Sadhu Sangha. Evam Ranam Kriya Yoga Sarve Sanchita Evatma Vinasaya Kopanti Kotapare. Thus, when all a man's activities are dedicated to the service of the Lord, those very activities which caused his perpetual bondage becomes the destroyer of the true. Like you have a tongue, and using that tongue for sense gratification, that's the cause of transmigration. That same tongue, say, hi, are you from Miami or out of town? We're pretty clickable. We're supposed to give these out to the 50 most far out Miamians today. Yadaksha kriyate karma bhagavad paritoshanam jnanam yataradinam hi bhakti samanvitam. Whatever work is done here in this life, for the satisfaction of the mission of the Lord, is called bhakti yoga, or transcendental loving service. And what is called knowledge becomes a concomitant factor. In other words, if there's bhakti yoga, one automatically is situated in transcendental knowledge. Urvana yakshakamani bhagavashchika shiksaya shikrit rananti gunanamani krishnasyami titacha. While performing duties according to the order of Krishna, the Supreme Lord, one constantly remembers him, his names and his qualities. Prabhupada gives the example that in a war, the soldier is under the dictates of the general. And so he kills so many men, he comes home and gets a medal. If the same person kills one person as a civilian, then he goes to prison for life. Because one is under the order of the superior, one is independent. That's what this verse is. Om Namo Bhagavate Tubhyam Vasudevaya Dhimani Pradyumana Niruddhaya Namaksam Karshanaya Cha. Let us all chant the glories of Vasudeva along with his plenary expansions, Pradyumna, Aniruddha, and Sankarshan. Iti mortyadidina nina mantra mortikam jajate prajipurusha sasam yatashinapuman. Thus, he is the actual seer who worships in the form of transcendental sound representation, Supreme Lord Vishnu, who has no material form. So who sees? Who's the seer? Who chants Hare Krishna. And you can see. Imam Swanigamam Brahman Arijam Yushtitam Danme Jnanamai Swayam Swasmi Eshava. O Brahman, thus by the Supreme Lord Krishna, I was endowed first with transcendental knowledge of the Lord as inculcated in the confidential parts of the Vedas, then with the spiritual opulences, and then with intimate loving service. So first he got the knowledge, he realized the knowledge, he got all mystic powers, and then he got the ultimate service. And then his knowledge became fully realized when he got the service. So actually you'll see that he's going to be saying that knowledge and the mystic powers were like an insignificant byproduct to his bhakti. Tamapi abhajashvita vishrutambi. Nope, we're back to the other two. Apyabhajashvita vishrutam vibhu samapyate yena tam vibhushitam yahi dukhair muraditatmanam sanklesham shantinam yata. Please, therefore, so what's the conclusion of all this? Please therefore describe the Almighty Lord's activities, which you have learned by your vast knowledge of the Vedas. For that will satisfy the hankerings of great learned men, and at the same time mitigate the miseries of the masses of the common people, who are always suffering from material pangs. Indeed, there is no other way to get out of the miseries. This is the conclusion. That's why the word therefore is there. Okay, so again, please therefore describe the Almighty Lord's activities, which you have learned by your vast knowledge of the Vedas. For that will satisfy the hankerings of the learned, great learning. So it does two things. Satisfies the hankerings of the great learning men, because they're hankering for knowledge. And for people in general who don't know what's going on, it mitigates the miseries of the masses of people. We're always suffering material pangs. No other way to get out of the miseries. So that ends the 5th chapter. The 6th chapter, Narada is continuing. He's continuing to talk about his own life. And yeah, he's getting more into detail. He's fluffing out the cotton. Like he said, I was the son of a maidservant, but now he's getting into the whole story. But how he was the son of a maidservant, and then how he met the sages, and then how he left home when his mother died. How he wasn't attached to her at all. He just looked at her for a second after she died from a snake bite. And then he went to the forest, and then he meditated, and appeared to him for a minute, and gave him instructions, and then how he became Narada with his Vastu city, the spiritual thing. I'll ask if there's any questions. Or if there's no questions, we'll start chapter 6, because really it's a continuation of the same conversation. Well, we already discussed how he had a Vastu city, always has a Vastu city. He's engaged in serving Krishna's pastimes, Ram's pastimes, Lord Narayan's pastimes. He goes all over the universes. That's eternal. He's also Madhu Mangal. He's also Srivas Thakur. That's eternal. But a part of him, he expanded to have this pastime of being a person who gradually developed. Gradually fell and gradually got developed. So we'll continue with the conversation. Chapter 6, conversation between Narada and Vyas. The last chapter was called Narada's instructions on Srimad Bhagavatam. And the last chapter is when he was saying how the Srimad Bhagavatam will create a revolution in the hearts of the misdirected civilization. Evam nishamya bhagavan devashirjan karmacha Yapraprachitvam Brahman Vyasa Sutta. Sutta said, so this whole conversation with Narada and Vyas is being told by Sutta Goswami to the sages. They asked, what is the ultimate scripture? There's so many scriptures, so many instructions. How do we know which is the essence of all scriptures for the good of the soul? And then he's answering Bhagavatam, and then he explains the glories of the Bhagavatam in the 2nd chapter, 3rd chapter, and then in the 5th chapter, Narada further expounded on the glories of the Bhagavatam. And well, before that, before the 4th chapter, they asked, how did it happen to come about that this Bhagavatam was manifest? So then Sutta Goswami is telling about Vyasdeva's lamentation and then Narada's instructions. Now we're going on in the 6th chapter to their conversation, and Narada's past lives. Sutta said, O Brahmanas, that is the 88,000 sages, the Vaishnava. Thus hearing all about Narada's birth and activities, Vyasdeva, the incarnation of God and the son of Satyavati, inquired as follows. Vyasuvacha Ikshuvir Vipravashite Vigyana Deshti Vistava Mana Vardamano Vayasyadye Tatapyam. Sri Vyasadeva said, what did you, Narada, do after the departure of the great sages who had instructed you in the scientific transcendental knowledge before the beginning of your present birth? Which, how did you leave your last body and get this present birth? Yeah. Huh? It's too late now. So. All right. So we're getting into more detail. Just one sentence of the purport. Vyas himself, although he's God, showing us by example, don't think you're so great that you don't need to. I'm an incarnation of God. Vyas himself was a disciple of Narada, and therefore it was natural to be anxious to hear about Narada, what Narada did after initiation from his spiritual masters. Because all we heard so far was that he got transcendental knowledge, he became attached to hearing, he got faith in them, got attached to devotion, right? That was it. So then what happened after they left? And how did you attain this body, having quit your old one in due course? Prakopa Vishayanekam Smritim Te Mo Sattama Nahyesha Yavadakala Esha Sankati Nirakuti. O great sage, time annihilates everything in due course. So how is it that this subject matter, which happened prior to this day of Brahma, is still fresh in your memory? Get that? Undisturbed by time. In other words, Narada left. He left his body in due course of time. And then was the end of the creation. And then he was breathed in by Lord Vishnu. Then he came out on the next day as the son of Brahma in a new creation. So Vyasadeva is asking, how do you remember everything so well? It's already another creation. We have a hard time remembering 3 minutes ago. O great sage, time annihilates everything in due course. So how is it that this subject matter, which happened prior to this day of Brahma, is still fresh in your memory, undisturbed by time? Let's see what Narada says. Narada Vacha Ikshuvir Pravasite Vigyana Vishchuma Vardamano Vayasyage Tata Eta Karshan. Narada said, O great sages, the great sages, who had imparted scientific knowledge of transcendence to me, departed for other places, and I had to pass my life in this way. You see, Vasanti, I don't have the blow, because I have the right angle, because I put it on my head. It's at a certain angle, so you don't get the hurricane winds. It's very important to help the people who are speaking, including yourself. Because charity begins at home. Ekat maja me janani josen urajikin kari mayat majen nanya gatau chakresne abandana. I was the only son of my mother, who was not only a simple woman, but a maidservant as well. Since I was her only offspring, she had no other alternative for protection. She bound me with a tie of affection. Shashvatantramakaupo sid yogashinman vikshati shasya hi vaseloko joshadurita. She wanted to look after my maintenance properly, but because she was not independent, she was not able to do anything. The world is under the full control of the Supreme Lord. Therefore, everyone is like a wooden doll in the hands of the puppet master. You know that painting, right? You all know the painting I did of Krishna being the puppet master, and then there's three modes of nature, and then the puppets. Somebody's thinking, I'm the boss. Somebody's thinking, oh God, I have to listen to this. They're both puppets. Aham chattadvamakule shivam sadvikshaya digdeshakaladuttam balakashayana. When I was a mere child of 5 years, I lived in a Brahmin school. I was dependent on my mother's protection and had no experience of different lands. Ekada negatam deha tu antim shantati sarvoda shabda srista. You get that word sarpo. Sarpo means snake. Once upon a time, my poor mother, going out one night to milk a cow, was bitten on the leg by a serpent, influenced by supreme time. But why was she bitten? Supreme time wanted that, as you said. But supreme time. Datadhamishasya bhaktanam samvistata anugrahamnam patistam deshantaram. I took this as the special mercy of the Lord, who always desires benediction for his devotees. And so thinking, I started for the north. Just barely glanced at her and then left. Krishna is very merciful to take away our attachment in unusual ways. You don't expect. Svitanjana padam tatra puragrama jakaram keta bhavataspatischa vananyu vanicha. After my departure, I passed through many flourishing metropolises, towns, villages, animal farms, mines, agricultural lands. He's only 5 years old. Valleys, flower gardens, nursery gardens. But he got a lot of power from those sages. And natural forests. Chitradatu vichitra, viva jagima, jalasayan shivujama, nilini susevita, chitrasvanai pucharataya, vibhana shriya. I passed through hills and mountains full of reservoirs of various minerals like gold, silver, and copper, and through tracts of land with reservoirs of water filled with beautiful lotus flowers, fit for the denizens of heaven, decorated with bewildered bees and singing birds. Why were the bees bewildered? Because they're intoxicated by the fragrance of the flowers. Nalavenu sarastanva kushaki eka eva tyoham adraksham namhat pratibhayakaram yavaku luka shivajiva kiram. I then passed along through many forests of rushes. Oh, I've run out of time. So we will continue with Narada's journey to finish the English. I then passed along through many forests of rushes, bamboo to rush. Maybe it meant bushes, bamboo, reeds, sharp grass, weeds, and caves, which were very difficult to go through alone. I visited deep, dark, and dangerously fearful forests, which were the play yards of snakes, owls, and jackals, but he wasn't afraid. So tomorrow we will find out what happens next. Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Srimad Bhagavatam. And in retrospect, oh Prabhu, you're not a Prabhupada. You are Prabhupada yourself. You are the sages yourself. You are the Sutta yourself. You are Narayana yourself. Please, all of you, sprinkle your mercy on us. And realize what you're telling us as we directly sit at the Lord's feet. And there we go. Anandi, Panchakopacha, Yastrakata, Smadesha, Titanam Pavane, Yo, Vaishnava.